Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Align Plans. Today, as you can tell by the title, we are going to be inking up our pens once again for the month of November. And I know we're pushing towards the end of November, but usually I like to make some changes about midway through the month, just so that, you know, I kind of have an idea of like what kind of happened in the previous month and then kind of move into the next month with sort of like a fresh start. I don't know, it just so happens that it ends up being around like the mid towards the end of the month, but here we are. So what I wanted to mention is I picked up a couple of extra new inks for the month of October leaning into November, and I have talked about it in previous videos and I will mention them again. I may reuse the ink. However, I will just switch up like which pen it's actually loaded into. I'm also happy to report that, oh, by the way, how rude of me. If this is your first time that we're meeting, hello, how are you? My name is Meshi and I'm the person behind Align Plans. We chat a couple of times a week on this channel and we talk about anything and everything, minimalist planning, journaling, fountain pens, all of the things stationery. And if that's your jam and you love to find a way to really use the things that you have with intention, instead of just accumulating them and, you know, just letting them collect dust on your shelf, then you have come to the absolute right place. And consider subscribing if you have not yet already, because it's awesome here. So I should mention, with regards to pens, I do have a few. I have about I have two brand new pens, and then in the previous months I also bought two others. So these are by far like the nicest, also the most expensive, the most treasured, the most prestigious pens that I'm going to be just spending a moment talking about. So the first one that I wanted to mention, so first of all, quick shout out to the coffee. The coffee that I'm drinking right now, it's a homemade espresso coffee, and the creamer that I have, it's an oat vanilla. Basically, this is like an oat vanilla brown sugar latte, but it has a little bit of pumpkin spice creamer as well. It's like a vegan pumpkin spice creamer, and it does sound delicious because it is delicious. So there you go. I hope that you're grabbing your coffee and you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying this. But without further ado, let me just move it out of the way before I be tempted to just dip my brush in my coffee, because we all know that has happened to some of us that are swatching inks. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you the pens that I'm planning on inking up. This does not include all of my pens, but it includes the ones that I'm actually planning on using throughout the month, or that are going to be like in a rotation, because what I don't want to do is constantly ink everything up and then I don't end up using them. You know what I mean? To me, that just sounds really redundant. So first and foremost, this is a very special limited edition sailor pen that I picked up from Yoseka. This is a collaboration. I believe this is a Sailor Pro Gear, and it is in a medium fine nib. Let's get you zoomed in. The end has like this very special symbol, which I believe is the symbol for, or the letter for home. I believe this is their home edition, and if you look very closely, I personally don't think that the camera is going to pick it up, but I'm hoping it will. It does have these small little micro glitter right in the pen. It makes it absolutely stunning. So this is one of them, and then the other sailor pen that I picked up, which I have been sitting on the fence for so long to even buy a sailor pen, and I'm so glad that I finally jumped on the opportunity and just bought it. Oh, by the way, irony, like, so my nails actually match the actual pen. So this is a limited edition collaboration with Mizutama, which is that little girl. If you've seen any of my Plan With Me videos, you already know that I bought the stamps. I bought like the little washi tapes. It's this girl that I absolutely adore. So I had to buy this. And again, this is another medium fine nib. Currently it came with the ink as well, which is also a limited edition ink. In a previous video, I talked about the ink and I compared that ink and I loaded it into 3 different pens to see which one works the best. So I'm not going to spoil that for you. I would just link it in the cards for you so you can check that out. But this is also getting a new ink. Then we have the Christopher Franklin. This is a limited edition collaboration with Wonder Pens, and it is I believe it's 20 mini. I believe that's the the unit, or like that's the number, and this is a medium nib. So this one is going to get like a darker color for the month. And then we also have the Pilot Prera in like this ivory color. And this one has, I believe it is a fine nib. Again, one of my absolute favorites, even just that click, it's so satisfying. Then I'm going to go into 3 of the Kawecos, one in white, in fox, and in navy. And we're going to see if we're going to be using the Lamy. I'm going to leave it out just in case. And then we also have the Ferris wheel press. Now you notice that last month I had a TWSBI here as well, where we were loading up one of the Ferris wheel press colors. I ended up giving the pen to my husband because it's originally it was his. So I'm kind of adding one of the pens back into the rotation. I like this one. I believe this one is also in a fine nib, so it's an oldie but a goodie. And you know, sometimes I do prefer this depending on the ink that's kind of loaded in, so you kind of can't go wrong. And I'm going to be using my trusty dip pen to swatch everything. And what I like to do is just kind of swatch everything, and then we can kind of figure out what color will go into which pen. And I will show you a close-up at the very end of how we kind of ended up. Now, a quick little preview or review from the previous month. So if I kind of go back here, so this is kind of what we had. We had Outback Forest in a Pilot Prera. I found this to be so faint, so I did not really enjoy this very much. We also had the Mint Kaweco, and we loaded up Treasure. Again, Mint Kaweco Sport, I find this pen, I ended up not really using this pen very often, even though I love the color, because it's so faint that it does not show up the way that I really wish it would. So I kind of get really frustrated with that. Then we have the Lennon toolbar, this yellow color, and we had the white Kaweco Sport that was loaded in there. I believe I ended up switching this out. Yeah, I did end up switching this out. I was not really enjoying this combination at all. It was way too diluted. And it was just something that I was not really reaching for very often, even though I love the color. So I think that this color would actually do really well in a totally different pen. Sailor Shikiori Kasasagi. This, I believe, FC. I forget what I did with this one. Kaweco Sport, Fox got Orchestra Tangerine. This was a very nice match, and I would look for something similar actually. I really enjoyed the way that it wrote. I thought that it was a really great match for the most part. We also had Classy Burgundy, and from Guitar Fountain Pen Ink. I'm not sure what pen we used for that one. TWSBI's Spruce Country Post. This worked out really well. I really love this combo. Once again, I might actually come back to this color for this month again, because I feel like I really didn't get enough time with this color actually. Writing Desk, honestly, between Writing Desk and Steeped Umber, they felt so similar that eventually I could not tell the difference. And it didn't matter whether I'm using the Ferris wheel press or the navy. They kind of blended way too much. So I'm definitely not going to be making that mistake this month. So that's my quick little preview or review of how things went for last month. But that's kind of why I like creating sort of like a swatch setup, so that I can go back and really review of what worked and what didn't. Okay, this month we're going to switch things up because I wanted to use inks that I haven't used for a while. Okay, so let me just move all of the pens aside, and I'm going to get my little cloth. Okay, so the first thing that I would like to do is I grabbed 3 of my little pilot colors, and this one is Iroshizuku Konpeki. Then we have Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukiyo, which I already know I absolutely love. And the last one is Pilot Iroshizuku, and this one is Murasaki Shikibu. So I wanted to swatch all three of them because I felt like I really needed a really beautiful blue to kind of come back to. So let's see. I mean, I already know I like Konpeki, but sometimes I need a reminder. Oh, do I really need a reminder? I don't think so. We already know it's stunning. I think that this is gonna be one of those things where I will actually have to buy the full bottle. Let me just zoom you guys in. So this is Iroshizuku's Konpeki. Let's take a look at Tsukiyo. And no, I don't think I bought. I think that this was actually on my wish list to buy like a full bottle or like a smaller version of the full bottle of this ink. A little bit of a deeper blue, very, very stunning. I think that we'll probably end up like loading up both actually. So definitely a much deeper blue. It does have a little bit of variation, which makes it very, very pretty. We might end up with Konpeki and one of the, I don't know, I don't want to speak too soon yet. Let's just continue on. Okay, so this one is Pilot Iroshizuku. This is Murasaki Shikibu. This was a stunning purple. And now for the full bottles, while these guys are drying. I do have two colors from Troublemaker, which we haven't touched for a little bit now. Then we have another color. This one, I haven't really talked too much about this. I ended up buying this color around the same time as I picked up Pilipera, maybe? It came in my latest haul from, oh my gosh, from Phaidon. So let's take a look. It's I currently have it loaded in the Sailor pen and it's absolutely stunning. And you'll see why. I might not be able to step away from this color for this month because I like it so much, but very stunning. Now I know that this is not how it's going to show up in my pens, but here's hoping. One thing I've been dying to do for the longest time, and I didn't really load this into any of my pens, but at the same haul, I also ended up buying this Kangayu from Sailor, and I'm hoping to swatch it against Alboloni, which might, it's either Alboloni or Petrichor that it might be like a really good dupe for, but it's a very interesting color, so let's take a look. As you can tell. And I held up for like the longest time to actually load it into any of the pens. Let's take a look at Albolone. I think we can still fit that here. Oh, I think that this is gonna be more of a blue. So I feel like you either pick Tsukio or you're going to pick Albolone. I don't think that you're going to pick both, personally, because I think that the swatch is just too close. So while this side, I mean, I feel like we have like a really nice starting point. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 9. Okay. Let me... I also wanted to swatch this, and I've swatched it before. This one is Kasasagi from Sailor Shikiori. Wait till you see this. So there it is. And then next up, I wanted to swatch Mazzona Tea. And I'm kind of in between. So Spruce Country Post, I think, because we are missing a green, and this does not really show up as a green. I'm kind of debating. So I love Mazzona Tea, but if we're going with this, let's take a look. We can also take a look at Meshi and I'm, like the Forest Elves, which is a really stunning color. And I feel like this hasn't really gotten enough playtime. But I feel like as soon as we add this into the mix, as soon as we add Hydrangea into the mix, then we're going to be really dominating within like the blues and not enough. There aren't any reds, there aren't any yellows. So once again, like I'm trying to kind of find that balance. So between these two, let's do like a quick swatch and see sort of, we're gonna start eliminating, because that's how we make decisions around here. Totally different. I mean, I love this color, but I feel like this would be way too similar to the other blues we have. So we're gonna eliminate this. Spruce Country Post is in. Let me just write it in on what it is. Now that that's drying, and this one is from, okay, let's just swatch Hydrangea. I don't think we're gonna be using this, but at least we'll have an idea. Okay, if I remember the company's name, I'll add it in. Right now, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to give this a few minutes until everything kind of dries, but we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 different blues. So some of them will need to be eliminated because once again, I feel like we're very much dominating in the blue section and I like to kind of find a balance. We also don't have any yellows, not too many reds to speak of. So I'm gonna see if we can maybe add a little bit of balance in here. Now I do feel like we haven't looked at Opera Rose for a long time. Also just seeing some of my smaller samples. I do have Winterberry, which is a very wintry color. We do have Tsutsui, which is a little bit brighter than what we have with Yamabudo. I do like Yamabudo, so I think we're gonna skip, we're going to just kind of stick with that one. I do think that for greens, I'm completely content with just that. Couple of things I want to update you on. I did swatch Opera Rose just to kind of bring a bit of balance of the red. So this one is from Guitar Fountain Pen Ink. And I also swatched like a little sample that I have of Noodler's Burgundy. Very stunning. So I think that we're gonna go with that. And I totally forgot to swatch Kelp Tea by oh my gosh, what is it? By Troublemaker. I don't think we're gonna go with that, but I wanted to at least. I feel like this would be a really lovely color to use like in the spring. It's not very like winter-like, so I think that we're going to skip out on that completely. And then the ones that I'm more gravitating, and I'm also going to skip out on Konpeki. I find it to be too bright. Same thing with Murasaki Shikibu. We're going to skip that. Like, these feel like spring to me. All three of those colors. As much as I love them, it just does not feel like it is like very like November appropriate, if you will. So we're gonna go with Yamabudu. We're gonna go with Tsukiyo Yamabudu, Sailor's Kongoyu, Albalone, definitely Spruce Country Post. I'm kind of contemplating on going with Musin versus Kasasagi, only because I know that this will look stunning for sure. And then we're gonna go with the two red ones and see if we're adding anything else into the mix. But for the time being, I think this will be our lineup, which I'm very excited about. Okay, you guys, I have finished inking all of the pens. And here's the lineup of everything that I ended up swatching. And then out of that, I can just put like a large cross against the ones that really didn't make it. So Iroshizuku Konpeki did not make it for this month. We ended up going with Tsukiyo, and I went with the Navy Kaweco Sport. And I did a little bit of a writing swatch just because sometimes you need to kind of write a little bit longer. So as you can tell, I'm not sure if the camera is picking it up properly or not, but here we go. So with this one, it starts out really brown and then it transitions more into more of a navy. It's definitely not really like the swatch. It's more of a darker bluish, grayish blue. So this is what we ended up with. Next up, I did not go with Murasaki Shikibu. I just felt like this would be more spring appropriate than anything else, so we're going to skip on that. Instead, we went with Yamabudo, and I'm using my white Kaweco Sport. So here she is. So here's a little swatch. It looks exactly like the swatch, except it's a little bit more sheared out. So I'm not going to get that deep richness. I'm going to get more of like the sheared out version. And in the writing test, this is it. I didn't even continue on writing because me writing, it matched the actual swatch. Next up, we have this interesting color. This one is Kengayu. I thought that this would show up really dark, and it ended up actually being relatively light. It's really beautiful. I ended up going with the Ferris wheel press pen just because this one is really trustworthy when it comes to kind of swatching colors. But I'll show you the writing test. It ends up showing up more light pink than anything else, and I continued on writing to see, well, I think it's this one. I continued to write to see if things shift or change, but it did not. And honestly, go and take a look at that swatch. It's so interesting. It's so pretty. So pretty. So I really like that. I really like that. That's what we're kind of going with for this month. Next up, Albalone, I ended up skipping because it was so similar to the Tsukiyo, so I didn't want like 3 blues. However, we're going to come to hydrangeas really soon. I'm also skipping on Kasasagi because I didn't realize that I actually had that inked up last month, so I didn't want it to be too redundant. So instead, we ended up with the Ferris wheel press Spruce Country Post. I ended up giving away the Twisby back to my husband, so I didn't actually get a chance to enjoy this for very long. So here's a small little swatch, and I ended up actually loading it in the Sailor Mizutama collaboration pen. I'm not sure if this will show up here, but it's exactly like the swatch, but it's a little bit sheared out. And the writing test is right here. Look how stunning it is. It actually reminds me, this reminds me so much of, oh my goodness, of Lennon Toolbar's Outback Forest, which we had last month, but it's a little bit richer, a little bit deeper. So I'm quite excited about that. That's actually going to be here on in my little everyday carry. So right here. Next up, so these three are sort of like my go-to. Meshi and I'm, or Forest Elves from Lennon Toolbar. Again, another one of my favorites. So I ended up loading it into the Pilot Prera. Again, it's a very trusty pen. I really love the way it writes. And here she is. So pretty, right? Especially when it's kind of sheared out, but it's still very, very legible. I feel like all of the colors that I chose for the month are very legible. Next up is Masona Tea, another oldie but a goodie. I really love this color. It never let me down. It shows up differently in each of my pens. For this month, I ended up loading it into my Sailor Yoseka collaboration. And that is, I believe it's this one. Yes, super pretty. So I'm really happy with all three of these. Hydrangea ended up going into my green Lammy, which is this guy right here with the fine nib. I'm not sure if this will show up or if I still have to write with it a little bit more. I feel like right now it's showing up more green because the previous color was still green. So I didn't even do a writing test. I think I'm going to have to write a little bit more with it until the actual ink will kind of show through. Because right now it's still showing up as green. So I will get back to you on this one. And then we have the two reds. I have Opera Rose and I have Noodles Burgundy. Opera Rose ended up going into Fox. So into my little Fox Kaweco Sport. And again, another beautiful writing experience. I do think that this is now mixing a little bit still with the orange, but I mean, Opera Rose is still one of the most stunning colors that I have. I'll just show you a close-up. So this is the writing test. I think we're gonna have to write a little bit more with it just so that we get like an accurate picture of this color. But I mean, I love the fact that the color of the pen actually matches the color that's sort of loaded in. And then last but not least, Noodles Burgundy. I love this one for last because I didn't really know. This one is a little bit more challenging to kind of fill and to fiddle with it. So I never really know how the color will show up. It's an interesting color right now. I was expecting it to be like this sheared out burgundy color from Christopher Franklin. And my Christopher Franklin, it's actually this one. Look how interesting this is. This gives me like these muted like sailor color vibes. Super pretty. I hope that the camera picks it up properly so you can see it, because this still feels burgundy to me, but this feels more of a legible burgundy than when we're looking at the actual swatch. When I'm looking at the swatch, I'm getting more red and a little bit a hint of pink more than anything else. So it's just interesting that once you like load it into your pen, it writes totally differently. This is all I have for you guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do all of the things to support the channel. It really does mean the world to me. And that's all I got for you. And keep planning, keep journaling, keep playing with fountain pens. And I cannot wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye.